Welcome to NewsBall Storytime. And here in episode 2, it's straight out of Stephen King, something like Misery, only way more demented and sickening. I don't think Stephen King did this to one of his victims in his books. This girl was kidnapped and turned into a sex slave for years, and she had all of her teeth and her lips removed. I can't even imagine how she didn't bleed to death, how she survived that pain. This is definitely not a bedtime story for you. Woman kept as a sex slave by Poland's Joseph Fritzl. The Joseph Fritzl guy, he had, a bunch of sex slaves in his basement, including his daughter, and he even had her give birth to him. So this is Poland's Joseph Fritzl. He had all of her teeth and both of her lips removed, leaving her with just a hole for a mouth as part of the captor's cruel experiments. You can Google this. The Daily Mail has an article of it with lots of pictures. The woman, said to have been kept as a sex slave, locked in a barn, was horrifically mutilated with injuries including the loss of both her lips and teeth. Have you heard of a kidnapper being that sadistic? Because I haven't. The disturbing strangled, slit throat, murdered, but doing this stuff, whoa. And he didn't kill her. He kept her alive. It's how could someone stomach this? It's hard to read it. The disturbing new details about the suffering of the woman alleged to have been held captive for 4 years by a rapist monster emerged from the medical reports of the doctors who raised the alarm. Her alleged captor, Matsus Jock, 35, was charged last week with mental, physical, and sexual abuse after the woman arrived at the hospital to be treated for a dislocated shoulder. And she is said to be 30, but she looks 50s. In her 50s, it looks like, because of the damage that's been done to her face and just the stress of being held kidnapped hostage for the last 4 years. Her account of what happened during her years of captivity suggests that Jock was carrying out experiments on her. I'm going to show you some pictures. The woman, also in her 30s, identified only by her first name, Malgorzata, told a fellow patient how she had been repeatedly raped and tortured while locked in the outbuilding in the village of Glogau, West Poland. So a little shed, a little barn on this farm's property where the parents were just feet away. And they're saying they had no idea there was a sex slave in the barn for the last 4 years. When examined by doctors, they found her brutal treatment had left her with such extensive facial damage that she had lost all of her teeth and had no lips, while the rest of her body was covered in a variety of abrasions and scars. The woman had previously been admitted to hospital on several occasions during the years she was held captive, even giving birth to a baby that she was forced to give up for adoption by the captor. But she was understood to be too afraid of her captor to tell anyone about her horrifying plight. It was only after she arrived last week with her face so badly disfigured. How do you survive that if your face is that messed up? And began to confide in other patients that doctors treating her finally alerted the authorities, and a full investigation was launched. And when examined by doctors, they found her brutal treatment had left her with such extensive facial damage that she had lost all of her teeth and had no lips, while the rest of her body was covered in a variety of abrasions and scars. She had been admitted several other occasions she was held captive, but she was understood to be too afraid to tell anyone about her horrifying plight. It was only after the whole investigation was finally launched. While she was in the hospital, she told a patient. They were speaking in confidence, but the patient alerted the doctors about what had happened to her. She was in a really serious condition, both physically and psychologically. From what we heard, the girl does not have lips now because of everything he had done to her. Her face is covered in bruises, and she just has an open hole where her mouth is without the lips. cane. It's just like this or something. This. And then no teeth either. It's like he wanted to turn her into like some perfect kind of certain sex act, huh? The woman said he was doing some kind of trial on her. He was experimenting on her. He was trying out different things on her. She was transferred to a specialist hospital now. We have no idea where, but believe it's a psychiatric hospital. Can you believe she's in the hospital, confined with another patient, and she's just like, as a matter of fact, so calmly or whatever, he's doing some trial on me. He's experimenting on me. He's trying out different things. Like, she was so Stockholm Syndrome. Listen to what the parents said, and no one suspected anything. And they even questioned, like, she was left alone there. And he was so confident she would never run out and run away or tell. He had just turned her into this little punching bag of abuse. It's insane, the Stockholm Syndrome phenomenon. Even though, the doctors say, even though she's only in her 30s, she looked well over 50 due to her physical condition. The woman came to us with injuries indicating that violence could have been used against her. But each time we had a conversation with her about it, and each time she swore no one was using violence against her. Like, I only see downside. Like, there's not any sort of balance. Your face is being ripped off. Stockholm Syndrome, you have to have some sort of nice treatment sometimes, don't you? Can't believe this girl stayed silent with the doctors. Never left the place. That is crazy how it works, the Stockholm Syndrome. She categorically refused to notify the services, claiming the hospital's hands were tied. The barn she was held in. It's a fake window with lace curtains on one side. Tall conifer-free trees are planted so the barn cannot be seen from cars passing the road. At the back of the barn, a dirt track leads out to a forest. Neighbors would see Jock at night, sometimes walking through the woods with a flashlight. Another barn, fallen apart a few meters from the other, would sometimes be covered in curtains at nighttime, with neighbors speculating that this is where the victim was washed with a hose. The pair reportedly met on a dating site in 2019, starting a relationship together. So maybe he was nice to her for a while. With Jock, when he took her to a disused animal barn on a farm where he lived with his parents. The victim was subjected to rape, beatings, and would be hosed down with water whenever she failed to meet her alleged abuser's demands. Despite the barn being located on a quiet residential street, with Jock's parents' house and neighbor's home just a step away, father and mother claimed they never heard any screams. His father, Joseph, burst into tears as he told Polish media, "My wife and I really didn't see any girl here. It's a shock for us. It's impossible. It couldn't have lasted years, maybe a few months, but not that long, because it would have been revealed sooner." His mother, Zofia, who claims she did not know anything, "There was never a situation where I even thought that something might be there. My husband was in the hospital for 2.5 months, and our son went to see him. If she was there and knew that he was leaving by himself in the car, why didn't she shout? Why didn't she knock? We didn't go in there at all. There was nothing there at all, so why bother?" That's the psycho's parents. The victim was subjected to rape, beatings, and would be hosed with water whenever she met the demands. Despite the barn, yeah, heard that again. So that's that. And the neighbor also said he was a weirdo. This is the father who broke down crying. Said, "No, a couple months maybe, not years. No girl who's been in there for years. It's impossible." This is the father of the psycho. Okay. This is the mother of the psycho. Quoted both of them. This is pictures of the girl with no mouth and teeth anymore. They showed her legs there in the hospital. This gives you an idea of her frame. She's not like overweight. How could she be? So if we could only see the other side of this, her face, I mean, she's supposed to look like in her 50s, even though she's in her 30s, and it's just going to be an open hole. And she's just this experiments being done on her. She has no teeth or lips. Like, that is a kind of Stockholm syndrome I would think you don't willingly, you don't, like, you gotta, if you're going through that much pain, doesn't the Stockholm syndrome effect get overridden by the pain and the horror you're going through, and you break out of there, you run out of there? It sounds like she had opportunities. Just one more time, it's just this is a girl that was being held as a sex slave in hostage for 4 years and he took her lips off and her teeth so that she would just have a hole on her face. And these are the only 2 pictures of the guy. There's no mugshot. Him looking shocked that he's been arrested, like, oh, don't look at me, don't look at me. And there he is in the back of the cop car. You could tell he looks just like his father. But so from comedy to horror, first 2 episodes of NewsBall Storytime is in the book. We will get a theme song going. We'll stop using Mr. Rogers. We'll have a whole cool intro. Story time. It's relaxing. Maybe new episodes will come out on Sundays. Give you hand-picked, curated, best articles. All I do is see news articles all day, every day. Jocelyn Nunn agrees murder would be an episode, but it's not so recent. Maybe some new details will come out during the trial, and we'll cover that. Lake and Riley, her murder, Rachel Marin's murder, any of those. All these girls victims of Kamala's illegals. If you vote Democrat, you're voting for open borders, and you are voting for the females in your life, your sister, your mom, your cousin, your daughter, to be the next victim of Kamala's illegals. It's sickening how anyone can vote Democrat. So this is for conservatives and Republicans and even independents. Story time for all of you sane, logical, common sense, normal people out there. Or true crime junkies. But for the Democrats out there, you're cool with Jocelyn Nunn being murdered by illegals. You're cool with Lake and Riley being murdered by illegals, and the thousands of other girls each year being attacked or murdered by illegals. NewsBall Storytime won't be for you. Ad-free NewsBall Storytime, at least for the time being. We're going to see if NewsBall TV here is really shadow banned. Even with 76,000 subscribers, feel like it's still shadow banned. They were deleting our videos during the pandemic. So we might be moving to Rumble. But for now, we'll do NewsBall Storytime. Start posting a lot of new content. Also launching a podcast, the Laugh at Your Debt podcast. So be sure to go check out Instagram, Cole Bartiromo, TikTok, Cole Bartiromo. And from there, read the bios. You could see the new podcast episodes dropping where we'll be interviewing people. Debt-related topics, and it'll be interesting, it'll be fascinating, all inspired by my $1 million debt as a kid and the death of 19-year-old Alex Kearns, who woke up one morning, saw his negative $800,000 Robinhood account balance, and then he killed himself because of the shock and the overwhelming feeling of him thinking he was in $1 million debt. So I will be the voice of reason, telling you to laugh at your debt. It's a figment of your imagination. It's ink on paper, pixels on a screen. It's not real. I'll show you what's real. No one has a bigger negative net worth than me, starting as young as I did. No one was ever put into a negative net worth as a kid in high school, as a teen. No one was ever fined $1 million, given a civil penalty, a lifelong horror like I was. So I'll teach you all to laugh it off. Don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it ruin your life. It's all about mindset. Anyway, I digress. Till the next time of NewsBall Storytime.